Microphone. What's happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the show, everybody. 12:45 on the dot. Just got a text message. It's probably telling me to turn on my microphone. Day 2 of the playoffs. Pretty fun day 1. A lot of good games. A lot of action. I was watching it basically wall to wall. Took a nap during the afternoon, so I missed some of the afternoon stuff, like 4 to 6 o'clock, somewhere in there. But was watching the Phillies game into the night. A lot of fun. More fun than it was successful for DFS for the limited lineups that I put in. Actually playing the full slate on FanDuel today. Not much improvement in their prize pools, but a little. So I figured I'd jump in. So we're doing that. Gonna knock out the show. We'll do like an hour today. A lot of same type stuff that we did, that we talked about yesterday. Not much changes day to day. But we'll definitely talk through each team. We'll talk through the pitching matchups. And we'll go from there. We've got Cujo here. Cujo stopping by to support the community. What a guy. Good luck to everybody playing DFS baseball. Doesn't sound like Cujo's playing today, but good luck with whatever you're doing, Cujo. Po Degen's here, as usual. Mamba. What's up, Mamba? Stephen Leibowitz. Very different slate today. VOE? VO? VOE? What's up, V? Could be Trav. 250 feet above the Earth's surface in his crane. Mamba contributed nicely to somebody's bankroll yesterday. Yep, I'm right there with you. Ready to build 150 from 250 feet up. I love it, Trav. That's dedication, man. Whoops. Gotta share the screen, dum-dum. There we go. New day, yeah, exactly, Stephen Leibowitz. New day, new slate, new pitching matchups. Hopefully more success today than yesterday. Got burnt a little bit by the Blue Jays only putting up 1 run. Not a great performance out of them. Had a good performance on the mound from Zach Wheeler in my main lineup. But yeah, just didn't quite get there with yesterday's set. But we're right back at it today. Thankfully, I have a union job and I'm never busy at work, making it a lot easier. That's a big plus. Union's got it worked into the contract that DFS time is mandatory. I like that. I think that's what the auto workers are striking for. And SAG. So, similar board to yesterday in terms of the runs. 3 8s and 1 7.5 compared to 3 7.5s and 1 8 yesterday. So we've got a little tiny bit more to work with. All the home teams favored. No surprises there. But it's kind of similar with yesterday, where low scoring games, potential to spread out some of your lineups, pick off a full stack from one game and then a couple correlated guys from another, or a couple random guys on a short slate, combined with a lot of low scoring expectations and a lot of good pitching. Definitely a lot of room to make different kind of decisions when we're putting together these lineups. Nothing crazy, nothing stupid, but all right, I've got 4 guys from Texas going up against Zach Eflin. Now let me grab somebody who looks good from the Twins, somebody who looks good from the Phillies, somebody who looks good from, you can kind of meld it in that way, because there's less likelihood that 2 games, 2 full stacks are going to completely explode on a slate like this. Mama says, I only played Philly, sat behind the dugout and watched a win. It will be the same today. Hey, sitting behind the dugout and watching the win is pretty sweet. Not bad at all, buddy. Oh, you say you meant because you won a lot. Gave Phillies, told everybody to fade that bum glass. Gotcha. I thought you meant the other way around. Contributed through entry fees. Yes, hopefully contributed to people using those plays and succeeding with them. Kevin O points out Tampa didn't even draw 20,000 yesterday. Yeah, tough. I mean, a team that doesn't draw anyway with a game on a weekday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it becomes kind of challenging to fill that place. They didn't do them any favors by scheduling those games for the afternoon. They could have thought that through and said, all right, these other games are going to draw more. Let's at least give them the advantage of the evening game. But is what it is. They'll draw more in their new stadium in St. Pete next year after, whenever that's going to get built. Oh, so we didn't actually talk through the pitchers, though. It's an interesting board. Eovaldi bouncing to the top. Barrios right behind them. Gallen. Kind of a stark top three. A little bit in the middle there with Nola, Eflin, and Sonny Gray probably. I think Sonny Gray probably belongs more in the bottom three there than the top. Not that there's much difference between the bottom, Braxton Garrett and Nathan Eovaldi at the top. Certainly Freddie Peralta is a major talent. Just doesn't project great because of the matchup against Arizona. Kind of like what we were seeing with Corbin Burns yesterday. So probably like tier 1 is Gallen. These three. Middle, bottom tier if we really had to draw lines. But we don't really need to draw lines. I think all 8 of these pitchers are very, very playable on this slate. I think there's good reason to mix and match. You know, you could play the price and popularity game, especially with a guy like Braxton Garrett. Even though he projects at the bottom of the board, it's still a pretty decent projection, and it's definitely a good projection for 6,700 on DK. So there's a lot of different ways to combine it, and I think you do want to get, if you're building out 150 anyway, a pretty broad spread of a lot of these pitchers, especially with the idea of the expectation of low-scoring games. A lot of these guys will compete neck and neck with one another in terms of strikeout acumen, strikeout upside. There's no clear-cut, hey, these are the 2 guys who are definitely head and shoulders above the rest of these guys, strikeout pitchers on this one. So I think it demands a pretty broad slate at the on the mound, and same thing at the plate. Colin Davis says Rangers have been running on fumes the last week. There's no way Eflin doesn't mow them down today, but hopefully I'm wrong. Okay. I do think Eovaldi's got the upside to 6. What's his... When did he go last? He pitched 29th. So that's... Yeah, that's 5 full days, right? Yeah. Yeah, he went 3 1/3 that day, gave up 7. Went 5 the game before that, gave up 5. Went 5 the game before that, gave up 3. Going into that last start against Seattle, we were talking about how the 2 5-inning performances were encouraging, and that I thought he would have upside to 6 in that one. I think they probably would have liked to have seen him pitch well and get through 6, and he did not. So that's problematic. But yeah, especially in a playoff game, I do think there's 6-inning upside. But there's also the possibility that, as I was mentioning yesterday, teams do like to get into bullpens fairly quickly in the playoffs. So he'd be one of the guys I'd be maybe a little bit more worried about that with, but I think it's definitely there for him. Colin says, surprised to see the projection so high when he has not put together a good start since coming back from injury. Yeah, a lot of track record, though. A lot of track record with Eovaldi that overtakes those recent performances. Did the team say 4 or 5 innings, Vio? Just looking, might as well take care of it now. Oh, come on with these damn pop-ups. Might as well take care of it now. I haven't seen anything from the team saying that it would be limited. This is a video. That's not going to help. I didn't check out what others were projecting or calling for as pitch counts. Let me see. Wow, they're going low pitch counts across town for everybody, really. So they've got him at 84, but they've also got Barrios at 88, Freddie Peralta at 88, Eflin at 80, Brax Garrett at 77. So they're just kind of cutting everybody. And that's, again, reflective of that notion that teams will like to get into the bullpen for the playoffs. Which could be the case, but if I was going to do that, I would probably strip the same number of pitches off of, like, all these guys. So maybe the number is high, but relative to everybody else, like, it would be on a scale where everybody would come down a little bit. If I was taking innings away from one, Gallen and Nola are the more likely to pitch deeper into the game just because of who they are and how they typically operate. But I don't know. I think I would apply that pretty evenly if I was going to strip down innings. So it would probably all work out pretty similarly. I think anybody can go 6 here. He's probably less likely to, though. We could take it down if we want. I mean, if you wanted to tell me he was here instead of here. It's a day where I'm basically trying to get to all these pitchers anyway, but point taken. I'm curious. Colin says Rangers will ride him as long as they can. Don't want to get into the bullpen if they don't have to. Bochy said he was fully stretched out before his Seattle start. Yeah, that was what I was thinking was what Colin was saying is, before the Seattle start. Considering he went 5 in each of the 2 before that one, I really don't see it being a physical limitation. Matt Pat's here. Matthew Patterson says Twins under come in. 2 plays for the day are the Brewers, D-backs under 7.5, and Gallen over the 4.5 strikeouts. Mamba says I don't think he's going more than 5 because he's not good enough. I don't think the pitch count is relevant here. Well, there's that. So let's get into it. We'll look at some of the numbers. So Evaldi, when he's pitching well, I certainly think he's good enough. 3.63 ERA, 3.96 xFIP, 22.9% strikeout rate, 8.1% walks. Walks are a little high. Barrels at 7.9 is fine. 6.4 degree average launch. Typically keeps the ball down, keeps it in the yard. 2.60% home run rate is very effective. 43.1% hard hits when the angle's down. We don't really worry about that. 88.9 miles an hour of exit velo is good anyway. 11.5% swinging strikes is pretty good. 26.7% CSW. Could be a little bit better. Not a premium strikeout option by any means. 22.4 last year, 25.5 the year before. But typically good at keeping it staying fairly clean. I mean, his walk rate's doubled this year over last and the year before. So if you get, again, good Evaldi, get the right day, there's definitely upside beyond even what he's done this year. Not my favorite option. I don't love that he's projected at the top of the board, but it is what it is in the model. Matthew Patterson says he can't be trusted in fantasy today. Never somebody I'm comfortable rostering, I'll tell you that much. But I do think that there's a lot of similarity with a lot of these guys. I think Evaldi's similarly talented to Barrios, Sonny Gray, Braxton Garrett. I would give a little bit of a bump to Gallen, Nola, Peralta. But all the other guys are about the same level of talent. Matchup-wise, going up against the Rays, they're definitely that frisky bunch that strings together runs and figures out ways to score and has some power in the lineup, has a good amount of speed in the lineup, a lot of guys who sequence well. But in the overall sense, and I was saying this yesterday, and I stand by it, man for man, this is not necessarily the team that, say, like the Phillies are, or the Rangers. I know they've been pretty good all year. We've liked them. We've used them for DFS purposes. A lot of reasons to believe that the Rays are a good team, but it's also technically one of the better matchups available. So I do think Evaldi's got upside. You can argue that the projection is high. And it probably is. But I definitely think there's potential there. And at 78.84, I think it's an easy spot to get invested in. Even if we don't trust him, part of the reason that I would want to get invested in him is because the entire industry is probably talking about how he's not good, how we don't trust him, how et cetera, they don't want to play him. Does that lead us down to, hey, we've got some Evaldi shares that nobody had and it went pop and it didn't work out at all? Sure, more often than not, it probably does. But we have succeeded many times with this guy. We know he's got enough talent to get there. On a limited pitching day, if there is an opportunity for ownership to get him at a low ownership point, especially when he projects out well, I'll absolutely take a shot. On the Rays side, looking like pretty similar lineup. Josh Lowe in the starting lineup today. Gives you a lefty bat cleanup. 4,500, 3,600. He hit 20 homers this year, stole 32 bases. Created runs 31% better than average. 208 ISO. Very nice season out of Josh Lowe. Isaac Paredes hitting fifth with all his power. 31 home runs. 238 ISO. 137 WRC+. plus. Bottom of the lineup, though, Manny Margot, Curtis Mead, Taylor Walls, Rene Pinto. Not exactly threatening. Fair amount of strikeouts, 32.4% for Pinto in 105 plate appearances, 26.4% for Taylor Walls in 349. Curtis Mead only 22.8% over 92 plate appearances, but that's a little bit above average. And then Manny Margot pretty good at not striking out, but not a great hitter in any other regard. Top of the lineups where the danger is. Yandy Diaz is spectacular. 330, 410, 522, 164 WRC+, plus, won the batting title, 22 home runs. Monster season. 54% hard hit rate, only strikes out 15.7% of the time. Randy Arozarena, Harold Ramirez, two dynamite hitters, two different hitters. Arozarena, tons of power, good amount of speed, 23 homers, 22 steals, 126 WRC+. plus. Ramirez, much more of a line drive hitter. Squares the ball up very, very well. Hits for average, 313, 353, 460. He's an on-base machine. He's a correlated scorer. He's a good option to be a catalyst for runs. Catalyst to turn the lineup over. So definitely, especially if you're rostering Evaldi, you got to get to some Rays as a hedge position on the other side of it. Matthew says, Evaldi's got the ability and can put up 10 strikeouts. I'm concerned with the short leash and the pitch count. Yeah, I mean, it is, it's a definite thing that's in the back of the mind. But, as I was pushing that thought through before, it's, I come back to the fact that he went 5 in those last couple games. Mamba says, that's what I was saying. Based on what you said yesterday, Rays can drive up the pitch count because they take a disciplined plate approach. That is true. You get some high pitch counts for sure. Well, he struggled post-injury, but he still held his own against right-handed hitters. His biggest problem was lefties, and Tampa Bay, outside of Josh Lowe, has no lefties due to injuries. 26% strikeout stuff to right-handed hitters. It's a good note. Good stuff, Dev. A lot of good stuff going on in chat right now. Some really sharp folks here. That's what I love about doing these shows. You guys have a lot of really good thoughts. Definitely helps me parse through this stuff for my own purposes. But yeah, especially if the public doesn't get there. I didn't have ownership numbers in mind. Let's cheat the ownership a little bit. I won't reveal the number as usual, but let's see where he is popularity-wise. Third most popular on FanDuel, but it's kind of one big ownership total, the obvious guy. And then kind of surprised by the number 2. And then it's like 3 guys. It's Evaldi and 2 other guys right at the same number in the middle. Interesting. Garrett's the one that... see, I'm more concerned about the total pitch count with Braxton Garrett, I think, than I am with Evaldi. I just think they're not protecting anything with Evaldi. So as long as things are going all right, I think he's going to just get his innings. Braxton Garrett didn't really pitch deep into games all season and is only 26 on a developing team. Nathan Eovaldi's 33. If he blows his arm, they don't really care. I mean, they need him now, but overall. Garrett did hit 6 a number of times down the stretch, though, which is encouraging. But yeah, I think any pitch count concerns are similar for a few of these guys. You know, it'll be less related to injury, as Mamba pointed out before, definitely related to performance, and then just playoff baseball, the nature of that. But you know, for a good perspective, the pitch counts again that a different site is projecting. The high is 91 for Nola and Gallen, and then everybody else in the low to mid 80s, and Braxton Garrett in the 70s. So it's just a more limited setup, the way that people are saying it. Devin Scott says, if anything, they probably want him out there longer, given Texas has a tendency to blow games with their bullpen. Blew game 1 in Seattle for them, which ended up costing them the AL West. Yeah, it's not the greatest bullpen. On the Rangers side, very strong lineup going up against Eflin. Eflin projects pretty well. 8,800, 9,100. The price is right. He's been pitching mostly very well all season long. 177 and 2/3 innings, 31 starts this year, 26.5% strikeout rate, a pretty microscopic 3.4% walk rate, only 1.02 whip, keeping guys off base, limiting opportunities. 3.50 ERA with a 3.13 xFIP, 2.70% home run rate. That comes on 9% barrels on a 9.1 degree average launch angle, only 34.9% hard hits, 87.5 miles an hour of exit velo. It's an excellent season out of Zach Eflin. He was always a good pitcher, but he made some pretty big steps forward this year. 105 innings 2 years ago, 22.4% strikeouts, 4.17, 3.61 in the ERA and the xFIP. Last year, 75 and 2/3, 20.8%, 4.8% walks, 4.04 with a 3.81. Just dynamite steps forward, pitched a full season. Really nice year out of Eflin. Definitely going to have some, but I don't love the matchup for him. And if he's going to be as popular as it seems like he might be, I can get away from attacking the Rangers. I know they haven't exactly been on fire, but there's reason to believe in a lot of the hitters in that lineup. I don't love this version of the lineup that's got Robbie Grossman hitting third. It's the same one they used yesterday, though. And, you know, there's obviously paths to success. Marcus Semien, monster second baseman, 29 home runs. What a year. It's weird because his power wasn't really coming through for much of the season. And then he rocketed his way to 29 home runs, 201 ISO by the end of the year. Filled out the rest of the stat line. 122 runs, 100 ribbies, 14 steals. Just a dynamite player. 124 WRC plus. Doesn't make crazy good contact, but never strikes out. Walks at a fair clip. 348 on base. Good correlated scoring option. Just excellent. 57.38. Arguably a couple bucks cheap. Seager, superstar. 63.44. Appropriately expensive. 33 home runs. A 169 WRC plus. Yeah, Matthew, no. Grossman's a 9 hitter. Makes no sense. Yeah, I agree. 420 plate appearances this year for Robbie Grossman. He's slashing 238, 340, 394. I get that they want to have the switch hitter up there, but they've got better switch hitters. Like I think they'd be better off with Leote in that spot if they wanted to put one of these guys up there, let alone Jonah Heim. But I just kind of liked the version that had Nathaniel Lowe there, Adolis hitting cleanup, and then Josh Young hitting fifth. I don't know what was wrong with that lineup that was so successful early in the season. But anyway, Grossman's in that spot, so we'll deal with it. 340 on base is a good on-base percentage. It provides some correlated scoring. Get him on base ahead of Adolis Garcia, Nathaniel Lowe. And I think that's generally the idea here, right? They worry about, like, all right, these two guys might just clear the bases themselves. We'll be up 2, but then we'll have to reset the table for the rest of these guys. So they stick Grossman in that spot because of the 340 on base. All these other guys that I mentioned, lower on base percentages. So I think that's what they're kind of trying to do here. So for that purpose, he's relatively effective. A 102 WRC plus puts him 2% ahead of the average. He does have a little bit of pop, 10 home runs on the year, but only 6.8% barrels, 37.3% hard hits, and he strikes out at a 23.3% clip. Adelise for 4,900, that's a major buy. That is an extreme value price for a guy with 39 home runs this year. 263 ISO, 124 WRC plus. 3,900, FanDuel got the pricing right. DK gave you a major discount on that on Garcia today. 16.1% barrels, 49.7% hard hits. Even against a pitcher like Eflin, who doesn't give up a ton of power, doesn't give up a ton of home runs, you just make the investment in a player that good, and you hope you get it on the right day. Low for 4,200 is also very cheap. 41.4% hard hits. 262, 360, 414. Created runs 14% better than average. Hit 17 home runs. Very, very good first base option. Helps pay for the stars up at the top. Jonah Heim, power hitting catcher. No Mitch Garver again today. 3,700 on DK for Heim is a great price. 2,800 on FanDuel. 18 home runs from the catcher position. A 179 ISO. Excellent buy. Lodi Taveras, Josh Young. Two very good players at the bottom of the lineup. Leota finished the year at 98 WRC plus. He spent the entire season at the bottom of the lineup. He was producing all year. Slipped at the end of the season, but we got a lot out of Leota this year, and I'm happy to go back to him. Hitting 7th is a better spot than hitting 9th. I really like Evan Carter in the 9 spot, though. 306, 413, 645. Hyper productive in his 75 plate appearances since he was called up. And then Young just had a great start to his season. 23 homers, took the injury like we talked about yesterday, and wasn't quite the same, but only cost 4,600, 3,000 now. Tons of power that we know is real. I think there's plenty of reason to go to Josh Young. So up and down on the Rangers side in terms of the lineup. Could be an underrated spot, too. If they end up not that popular because Eflin is a little bit popular, that could be a good spot to get invested in. Now I have to rank it after all that talk about how this Eovaldi projection is high. Screw it. I'm still going to put him on top. Eovaldi, Eflin, Rangers, Rays. Eflin was there on the board. I think that makes sense. Eovaldi, Eflin, Rangers, Rays. Could easily argue it. Rangers, Rays, Eflin, Eovaldi. It's very, very close. Everything on the board today is very close. There's a very minimal separation of fantasy points from the top to the bottom. If you're looking at the stacks board, all the pitchers are pretty closely projected. Mamba asks, what is the Rangers chase rate as a team? I don't have that in my head, but I think we got that here. That would be plate discipline, right? Oh, fuck, where's that? Trying to find where that is. I know that's here somewhere. I know you guys can't see what I'm looking at. I'm trying not to spend too much time on this. Okay, Joker, chill, buddy. Texas's O-swing is 29.4%. That is 5th best in baseball. I almost spilled the entire cup of coffee onto the... Do we have it on... Now you've thrown me down a rabbit hole, Mamba. Chase rate. There we go. .25.5, best in baseball. 24,733 pitches, 25.5% chase rate, 54.9% chase contact. That is middle of the road. One of the better whiff rates, 24.4% whiff. Let's call that 7th. No worries, Mama. That's the fun stuff to look up, buddy. That was from the second place that just had it as listed as chase rate, by the way, is Savant. BaseballSavant.mlb.com/league. Gives you all that you need. I can actually just... Graphs has it as well, but it's just more clear cut, easy to find on that StatCast page that I should have gone to first. All right, so let's keep rolling. Jake says, might be my Rays bias, but Rangers are going to get hammered today. Could happen. Lowe's been batting sub 100 in September, but Grossman isn't the answer. Would much rather have Garver DH. And I mean, Colin is as far as like the September numbers, like we've got a fairly significant track record now with Nathaniel Lowe. That guys go through ups and downs, but it's not. That's not indicative that he's not the hitter that we thought he was, by any means. So I just continue giving guys shots, and if I'm managing the team, I just keep the guy in his typical spot and trust that his numbers are going to be what they're supposed to be. But yeah, for the course of 2,200 plate appearances in his career, 273, 355, 441. Pretty good hitter, 168 ISO, 120 WRC plus. Pretty good hitter, in my opinion. So I would just roll him back out there, like regardless of how September's going. But yeah, they're trying to shake things up, make it happen. Jake says, Evaldi giving up the booty. Rays handle his pitch mix fairly well. Man, nobody likes the Evaldi play today. All right. Me and Nathan Evaldi are going to go win some money today. It sucks that it's somebody that I am so uncomfortable playing that I really don't like using, that is projecting like that I end up making a stand on. I'd so much rather use one of these other pitchers. But I'll have on the mound. I am running 150 a day, so I'll have a little bits of everybody on the mound. Mamba says, thanks. I just gave up a small part of my strategy that's kept me in the top 20 every slate since last month. Woo! That's pretty awesome, buddy. Mamba's a sharp guy. You guys should be definitely absorbing the things that he drops into chat. There's some good nuggets there. Blue Jays and the Twins. Sonny Gray on the bump for the Twins. Jose Barrios. Another matchup. This one's another one where it's between two pitchers that I do think are very, very talented guys, but I don't love rostering for DFS purposes because I feel like they never get it done for me. So Evaldi, Barrios, and Sonny Gray are all kind of in that bucket. They project out very, very well. Jose Barrios a little bit more on the back of increased strikeout rate with the Twins on the other side. They're the biggest strikeout target again on this slate, just like yesterday. So Barrios seeing a bit of a bump there. 23.5% strikeouts from him this year. He was mostly the good Barrios, not the bad one that we saw last year, who was shaky, giving up a fair amount of home runs. That said, even last year it was only a 3.85% home run rate. So it was kind of exaggerated in what we remember from being burnt by it in DFS than the real life home run number. 4+ is where we start getting really ugly. So, I mean, he was pushing it. And it was certainly higher than the 2.82 the year before or the 3.2 this year. But it wasn't as tragic. 5.23 ERA, 4.21 xFIP, 19.8% strikeout rate. This was the big thing that really hurt his DFS value last year. And he brought that back up, 23.5% this year. That's Still down from 2 years ago when he was 26.1. This was his best season. Might end up standing as his best season when it's all said and done. But an effective enough pitcher. Definitely has strikeout upside, strikeout potential, ceiling beyond this projection against this team. 7,600 on DK is a phenomenal price for Jose Barrios in this matchup. 9,800 on FanDuel is just correct. But happy to get shares of him. Definitely strikeouts available for him here. On the Sonny Gray side of things, 8,300, 9,500. He pitched very well all season. 2.79 ERA, a 3.65 xFIP. Only a 1.06 home run rate. Into like July, he had allowed, I think, 1 home run, maybe 2 all season. Give up a couple along the way, but really, really limited for power this year. And, I mean, did it on a 39% hard hit rate, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo, 6.9% barrels, and 9.6 degrees average launch. So it's not like he was working on a negative average launch like a Framber Valdez kind of a situation. It's a very good launch angle on average. Definitely avoided barrels. The hard hits were there, though. The exit velo was mostly there. Just managed to not give up home runs. Part of that probably a little bit lucky. Part of that just on talent. But overall, 24.3% strikeouts. Very, very good this year. 11.4% swinging strikes. Going up against a Blue Jays lineup that was disappointing yesterday. Don't look quite as good today as they did yesterday. Probably leads to them having a big outburst today, of all things. But I'm a little bit less enthused about the Blue Jays today than I was yesterday. Still going to have plenty. They rank 6th on the board by fantasy point projections. 4th by value on both sides. 6th by home run upside. So a little bit of a limiting impact against Sonny here in terms of the power. Both pitchers definitely in play. 8,300 is an aggressively good price for Gray. DraftKings doing a lot of favors in terms of these prices. Very good price on Gray there. 95, correct. Comfortable on FanDuel. Happy to pay that. Barrios looks shaky versus Yankees last 2 starts. Does that matter? I mean, matter maybe if it was, if you could say for sure that it was indicative of his elbow hurts, he's tired, it's the end of the season. But anything that we tried to put on that would be speculating. He also did strike out 10 in one of those games against the Yankees. Just gave up 4 earned runs, a home run, walked 3, but struck out 10. The first game against the Yanks went 5 2/3, gave up another 4 runs and a home run, struck out 6. Neither of those games was tragic, just not dominant. For a stretch of 3 games before that, he gave up 2 runs at most, 0, 2, and 2. Struck out 8, 7, and 7. A couple of 5-run games before that stretch. And then a stretch of pretty clean games before that. That's who he is. I mean, he gives up a few runs. You get him on the wrong day, he'll give up 4 or 5. You get him on the right day, he gives up 1 or 2. Finds a good handful of strikeouts. But a pretty decent strikeout total. 2 runs, 9 strikeouts is definitely on the board for Jose Barrios against this Twins team. 26.9% strikeout rate for the confirmed starting lineup. It's an aggressive free swinging team. So plenty of upside for him. And then plenty of upside for Sonny Gray as well. He's definitely capable of finding strikeouts against this team. 21.8% strikeouts for the Blue Jays. The thing about them is that their 3 stars are their best 3 guys at avoiding the strikeout. Or I guess if you count Alejandro Kirk in there. But they're 3 of their best guys at avoiding the strikeout, which doesn't do any favors for the opposing pitchers. But you've got Brandon Belt in there. As good as he is, he does strike out 35% of the time. Kevin Biggio, 26%. Kiermaier and Chapman. Chapman's another aggressive strikeout guy who hits the ball very hard when he makes contact. So both Chapman and Belt are threatening guys, but they both strike out and can help Sonny Gray pad, and he doesn't give up a lot of power. If we're looking at that Blue Jays lineup in full, 21 homers, 20 steals for George Springer up top, a 104 WRC+, plus, only a 147 ISO this year. Last year that was 205. The year before that was 291. 140 WRC+, plus, 132 WRC+. Plus. The homers weren't far off. The stolen base total actually exceeded both of the last 2 years. The triple slash on base was down a little bit. Average wasn't crazy down. Just didn't hit for as much power outside of home runs this year.
7.7% barrels, 39.4% hard hits. It's a minor dip, but it seems like an important one year over year, given the change in his ISO, the change in results for, like, I'm sure his doubles total is probably way down. Mr. Springer. Let's see. No, his doubles total actually went up. Hit 4 triples last year. $111 singles versus 86 singles this year. That makes a difference. Just a weird year for Springer. But definitely playable, especially because he only cost $4,700 on the DK slate, $3,200 on FanDuel. You're getting a good discount for a guy who has been a very, very good player in his life. One of the all-time postseason home run leaders. I think it was like 19, 18, 17, somewhere in there. Definitely a good track record. I think I actually have that right here. 19. 305 plate appearances in the postseason, 19 home runs, 66 games in the postseason so far in his career for the 33-year-old. All those postseason records you got to take with a grain of salt because it's a completely different format than they used to play back in the day. So guys from those Yankees teams that went to the World Series and won every year, didn't get nearly the amount of plate appearances that guys from the Yankees teams in the 90s got. So guys like Bernie and the players who were in every year these days, when you play 4 rounds of playoffs, see way more plate appearances. So all those postseason records are skewed, but Springer has been very, very good in the postseason in his career, and I was using that as an example of Springer is a very good player on the whole. So you're getting him cheap. Brandon Belt, $3,800, $2,800, extremely cheap for a guy who created runs 38% better than average with a 236 ISO, 19 home runs and only 404 plate appearances. Positional blocker with Vladdy. Got to point that out every single time. Not on FanDuel. I love putting these two guys together, first base and util on FanDuel lineups, and then just kind of let the rest of it fall where it may. I think that's just a good combo. Brandon Belt comes up a lot more in optimizer builds on both sites than Vladdy does because of the price discrepancy. So there's always that. You can give Vladdy a nudge in projections to make sure that he comes up more or at least appropriately balanced with Belt. You can lock lineups in with Vladdy and run off a bunch so that you make sure that you've got him depending on how you sort lineups. I might end up doing it that way because I noticed yesterday the overall pool just didn't have as much Vladdy as I would have wanted to have. Bo Bichette, 53-34, superstar shortstop. 306, 339, 475 on the season, 125 WRC plus, 20 home runs. Better at the start of the year than at the end of the year, but overall very, very good at his position and one of the premium shortstops available on the slate. Vladdy for 49, another really discounted player on the DK board. 35 on FanDuel was a little bit cheap too. Ended with 26 home runs, kind of a down year overall. Still hits the ball extremely hard, doesn't strike out. Still Vladdy Guerrero. Happy to get there. Kevin Biggio, if he's in the lineup. Do we have this lineup, actually? No, we don't. If Biggio's in the lineup, he's playable. Very cheap. 2,800, 2,500. Second base eligible on both sites. That's where I'd rather have him than at first base. Obviously, especially with Vladdy on the team and Brandon Belt. He would be the third priority first baseman at best from this team. So you definitely would rather have him at second. 9 home runs on the season, 5 steals, a 103 WRC plus, a little bit of productivity. Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Kiermaier, Matt Chapman, Dalton Varsho to round out the lineup. Kirk's a playable catcher, 3,000, 2,300. You'd rather have Danny Jansen, but we don't. Kirk has 8 home runs on the year, 96 WRC plus, an involved catcher with a good spot in the lineup. Kiermaier's more here for defense, as we've talked about, but he did hit 8 home runs. He was above average for run creation. Chapman hits everything hard, costs 4,000, 2,600, a very playable part at third base. And then Varsho, down season overall, but 20 home runs, 16 steals on any given slate, kind of a setup, and especially on a short slate, on a playoff slate that's going to probably be low scoring. I do think you can go to basically anybody, and Varsho is basically anybody. Bottom of the lineup lefty, decent option. Given his counting stat upside, it's not a bad option for 31-28. On the Twins side, the confirmed lineup, a lot of good infield options here. They go together with a lot of teams naturally because of those good infield options. Because everybody's fairly cheap, they're one of the better discount teams on the board. Edward Julian at second base, 4,400, 3,000. Hit 16 home runs and only 408 plate appearances this year. 195 ISO, created runs 36% better than average. Jorge Polanco, second and third on both sites, 4,600, 3,200. 14 homers and only 343 plate appearances, a 199 ISO. Royce Lewis, third base on DK, shortstop or third base on FanDuel, mashed another 2 home runs yesterday. All he does is have monster fantasy games. 15 home runs and only 239 plate appearances, had a couple grand slams in there. 240 ISO, 155 WRC plus. He's an absolute beast. 11.7% barrels, 41.4% hard hits. Didn't have enough in my limited lineups yesterday. Jake Swales is in the parking lot at the Trop, debating on whether he should head inside. Of course you should head inside. I used to love the Trop. That was my go-to AC casino. Say hi to the poker room for me. It's been a while. Mom asks, where does Lewis rank today for you? He's a very sketchy hitter with a lot of power. He ranks right here, kind of in the middle. The power's not fully accounted for in the model just because it's kind of 239 plate appearance blip right now, and there's not a ton of history here. So it's not giving him too much credit for it, but it's giving him some, right? It's, I think, handling it fairly appropriately. We don't want to run off and give him all the credit in the world, but we do want to account for what he's doing out there right now. And the fact that he's, a highly regarded kid when he was coming up. Max Kepler, 43-31. Good buy. A good purchase, not good buy. Good purchase. Good price. 12.2% barrels, 47.6% hard hits, 24 home runs to lead the team. 260, 332, 484, 224 ISO. Very good left-handed option in the heart of the lineup. Alex Kirilloff from the left side, 11 home runs in 319 plate appearances, 120 WRC plus, a 174 ISO. A good hitter, a little bit of power, not great in any aspect, but not priced up. It's not like they've got him priced like he's a great hitter. I actually think he's a pretty good buy for those numbers. 3,200 on DK especially helps pay for a lot of other stuff. So an effective bat in the middle of the lineup there with Kirilloff. Carlos Correa, down season for him, 18 home runs, 96 WRC plus. Still is Carlos Correa lurking in there somewhere, though. 45.9% hard hits, 22.6% strikeouts. When he puts bat on ball, good things tend to happen. 10.2% walks, can still get himself to first base. Only a 312 on base. What was his BABIP? Gonna guess it was in the 250s somewhere. 272. Better than I thought, but not good. So stung a little bit by the BABIP. 230 overall though. 230, 312, 399. Not quite 291, 366, 467 that he was last year. Little bit of a downturn. Matt Wallner, 34, 27, 14 home runs. Ryan Jeffers, 35, 27, 14 home runs. Michael A., 27, 26, 21 home runs. Awesome purchase at the bottom of the lineup. 13.5% barrels, 21 homers, 13 steals, 95 WRC plus. You're taking him as a dart throw. You're home run hunting with him. Looking for that big Michael A. Taylor day. But I like that option at the bottom of the lineup for a discount. 21 homers and only 388 plate appearances is significant power. Doesn't get the credit for it. Wallner's very playable for 34-27. His 14 home runs came in only 254. And Jeffers' 14 home runs behind the plate came in only 335. So he's a very playable catcher. 11.6% barrels, 42.7% hard hits. These guys are like a better version of the Oakland A's with all these barrels, all the hard hits. Double-digit barrel rates, 40+% hard hits. But these guys actually turn it into more home runs. They get on base a hell of a lot more consistently. 344 average on base percentage for this team. Average WRC plus is 125. The average plate appearance number, like we looked at yesterday, is only 373. And even with that, they've got an average home run total of 16 across the lineup. Everybody in the lineup, double-digit home runs into the mid-teens. It's a weird little team. Effective for DFS purposes for sure. A lot of guys that are, same down here as to up here. Not a lot of like differentiation between the guys at the top of the lineup and the guys through the bottom of the lineup in terms of talent. They're just fairly effective up and down. And you get a lot of really good prices. A little bit more limited with only 3 guys playing 2 positions on FanDuel, rather than we had toward the end of the season there, we had days where we had 3 guys playing 3 positions and another 2 with 2 positions each for cheap on FanDuel. So it's a little bit more constricted, but still a very strong value option. Barrios, Gray, and then what does the board have? Ooh, yeah, Twins. Barrios, Gray, Twins, Blue Jays. Twins are 3rd by projections, 3rd by FanDuel point per dollar, 1st by DK point per dollar, and 1st by home run upside. Which is interesting because nobody over 10. But the whole collective lineup averages out better than everybody else. Interesting. Twins are a good spot today. I like that. Jake says if you're going full twin stacks, you got to have Julian in there. Yeah, I don't mind. I think that's a pretty good call. I wouldn't skip them all that often. Let's put it that way. If I'm building out 150 lineups, though, I'm going to have a bunch of twin stacks, so some of them would not have Julian. You definitely want to be anti-fragile when you're putting these lineups together. You want to make sure that, all right, I built out a bunch of twin stacks, but they all have Julian and Royce Lewis in it. That's not the right way to build lineups. You want to have a handful of lineups that don't have those guys, because the last thing you want is to have the Twins go off, but it's only Wallner, Jefferson, Taylor at the bottom with like Alex Kirilloff, and you've got none of those guys, but you've got 30 twin stacks that all have Royce Lewis and Eduardo Julian giving you a 0. So you definitely want to make sure that you're connecting all these guys across your 20 stacks or whatever, but you want to be anti-fragile about it. And that's really the trickiest part of it to me, is in the sorting process, getting to those lineups where you're diverse enough that you're not creating a very fragile, if a guy puts a 0 into it, he's in all the lineups kind of a set. It's very, very difficult. Po DJ asks, do you know what nemesis means? I assume you're not asking me, but yes, I do. When you can get Taylor at that price tag with all that power, he's one of the best fillers on the slate, says Matthew Patterson. Yeah, I've been going to him for... I didn't have him in a lineup that broke through for like a big win this year, but I had him where he was one of the better sneaky productive hitters in my lineup a number of times through the season, where everybody else kind of failed him. He's one of my go-to guys at the bottom of lineups that nobody ever likes to roster, and I love getting to plays like that. Mama says Twins are built the way the Yankees should be. You're not wrong. Matthew Patterson likes the Polanco one-off today. I do too. Another guy that I just think doesn't get enough credit. People forgot how good he was while he was out so much last year, this year. But a very significant power bat for them in the infield. Let's keep on rolling, though. Keep forgetting I actually have to do lineups today, and we're only halfway through the slate. Freddie Peralta, Zach Gallen. 9,000, 10-6 on FanDuel for Freddie. Doesn't project poorly, but doesn't project great for the money. DK, different story at 9,000. Not that he's unusable, not that I won't have any. He is the top strikeout rate on the board, 30.9% for the season. Had some dominant outings. Second half was really strong. 3.86 ERA, 3.42 xFIP overall, 14.4% swinging strike rate. If we're remembering from yesterday, those among the league leaders for swinging strikes. 3.82% home runs, was a little bit more vulnerable than usual for home run power. Last year that was 1.89. Year before 2.41. Last year 31.3% hard hits. The year before 31.1% hard hits. Only 6% barrels, 3.5% barrels last year. This year those numbers went way up. 37.3% hard hits, 8.5% barrels. These are still very good numbers, but they went way up year over year, which is where these additional home runs came from. Remember, 4% home runs is pretty ugly. So he started to push toward the ugly home run output. Everything else was pretty strong. The strikeouts went up. 3 points of additional strikeouts. Is that a trade you want to make necessarily? A couple more home runs for a couple more strikeouts? It's close. It's a bigger jump in home runs than he made in strikeouts. If he had gone from 27.1% strikeouts back to this 33% strikeout guy for the course of the season, give me another 3 points, then we're talking. Then it's probably a fair trade. But he was very good. Took the swinging strikes up. CSW about the same. Swinging strikes matched back to this year. He was mostly this guy again, outside of the power. Going up against the Diamondbacks lineup that is difficult on strikeouts, though. 20.5% strikeout rate for this projected version of the lineup. That's with Longo in there, with his 30.8% strikeout rate for the season. Did you see Longo flashing the leather yesterday, by the way? Looking 20 years younger. You like Polanco over Julian? He's my last man in the lineup. Not necessarily over. I don't know did I say it that way? If I said it that way, I misspoke. I like both of those guys. I'd be really hard pressed. I mean, if we're going by numbers, then go Edward Julian because he's outpacing him slightly in the home run model, and he's got the slightly better spot in the batting order. But it's very close. I didn't mean to imply that I like one of those guys strongly over the other one. I think they're both important pieces of that lineup. Similar positions, you can play them both. Well, you only get Julian at second base. So, yeah, if you're looking for a second baseman, you're not making a mistake with either one. If you prefer Julian, it's justified, and it's backed up by what we're looking at here on the screen. I've got more history with Polanco. That's really the only reason. Other than that, they're same. At worst, I think they're the same. Yeah. Again, Mamba, I don't think it's a mistake either way. If you prefer Julian, these are the same. A little bit more hard hits. He's outpacing him in home runs. I think the projection is roughly the same, despite the coloring. 16 home runs in 408 versus 14 home runs in 343. 6 WRC plus versus 118. They're very similar options. So no mistake either way. Take your Julian play with my blessing and be confident that it's a good play. So back to Freddie. For 9,000 on DK, I would expect that he's going to gain some popularity. That's a very good option. 10-6 on FanDuel, I'll probably be under the field on him. I don't know where the field's going to end up at that price. But given that he's one of the lower projected guys in the model here for the highest price against the team that I don't really love targeting with pitching through most of the season, I'm kind of going to be limited on the Freddie shares, I think. Zach Gallen on the other side, not nearly as much. He projects out very, very well for 10-2. For a $400 discount, I greatly prefer the Gallen side of this one to the Peralta side. More strikeouts available for him? Well, only slightly, 20.9% versus 20.5%. If we take out the Longo number, though, that probably changes. Let's see. 19-2. To be fair, we'll drop the high from the Brewers as well. 19.2 versus 20.2, so we gain a point. It's closer than I was thinking off the top of my head as I was saying that, but I just think there's a little bit more strikeout potential for Zach Gallen. Call it bias, whatever. Also, depth of innings, 34 starts, 210 innings pitched, 26% strikeout rate, 5.6% walk rate, 3.47 ERA, 3.49 xFIP. Basically was who he was on the surface all season. 9.2% barrels, 46% hard hits is high, 91 miles an hour of exit velo is very high, but only 2.6% home runs. Probably got a little bit lucky to avoid a couple of those, but overall just pitched very, very well this season. Last year, 184 innings in 31 starts. Was giving you depth last year too, 26.9% strikeout rate, 6.6% walks. Was equally good last year. Year before was a shorter season for him, only 23 starts, but was also pretty effective that year. The walks were a lot higher. That's what led to the higher ERA, the higher xFIP. Give up a little bit more power, but a dynamite pitcher. 9,200 is definitely a good price on DK. Everybody's cheap on DK today. And it's a good matchup, like we've talked about. I just don't fully believe in this team, this Brewers team, from an offensive standpoint. After you pass out of this, Mark Canha, as we talked about yesterday, is a ridiculous option at the cleanup spot, like ridiculously flawed option at the cleanup spot. He's a good veteran hitter, a good hitter, but not a great hitter. A guy who should be hitting 7th on a playoff team, not cleanup. So once you get out of that top 4, it becomes very questionable, becomes fairly high strikeout, a little bit shaky. There's power down there with Adames and Josh Donaldson for sure, but Gallen's got all the talent in the world. There's a lot of reason to believe that Gallen can go out there and carve up this Brewers team. Get me through Christian Yelich and William Contreras 3 times, and I'll take my chances with the rest of this lineup. So I really like the spot for Gallen. I will go to some Brewers as a hedge. I will have some Brewers, but they'll be one of my lower-owned stacks, I think. Bottom of the board by projections. 8th out of 8 by projections. 7th on both sites by value. 5th by home run potential. Where Gallen ranks 3rd on a tightly packed pitching board. Christian Yelich, 4,900, too cheap on DK. 4,000 correctly priced on FanDuel. Creator runs 22% better than average. 19 homers, 28 steals on the season. William Contreras, one of the top catcher options, plays every day. Hits at the top of the lineup. 611 plate appearances this year. Excellent option at the catcher position. 291, 369, 459, 125 WRC plus, hit 17 homers. If it wasn't for the power discrepancy between him and some of the other guys at the position, he'd be regarded as one of the very best hitting catchers in baseball, because he is one. 369 on base is dynamite for a catcher. The fact that he made 600 plate appearances at the position has value. That's 200 more plate appearances than most players at his position. Carlos Santana, 4,100, 3,000, 23 home runs on the season, switch hitter, a little bit of power, 189 ISO, 101 WRC plus. Turned himself around once he got to Milwaukee, was originally in Pittsburgh to start the year. Mark Canha, as I was saying, flawed as a cleanup man, but for 3,400, 2,800, if you're stacking up Brewers, you definitely want to have him. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying you skip him. I'm just saying it's a weird hitter to have in that spot in your lineup for real-life baseball purposes. Creator runs 11% better than average, the 3rd best mark on this team. 11 home runs, 11 steals. After that, Sal Frelick, 3 home runs, 7 steals in 223, 92 WRC plus. Adames played the full season, 24 homers, but a 94 WRC plus. It's a home runner, a 0 a lot of days. Josh Donaldson, similar. Home runner, a 0. 13 homers, but 152, 249, 418 in his 189 plate appearances. Got run out of town in New York, landed with the Brewers. Had a pretty good run down the stretch with the Brewers when he played. Leading the team at a 9.12 in the home run model. Was it like a 13, I think, yesterday? Bryce Turang, 6 homers, 26 steals, a 60 WRC plus. And then Tyrone Taylor knocked one into the stands yesterday. 10 home runs on the season. I forgot to mention him yesterday because the projected lineup that we were using had somebody else in that spot. I forget who it was. But it wasn't Taylor. He's another guy, just like Michael A. Taylor, that sneaky pop late in the lineups that I like getting to. And I didn't use him yesterday because we hadn't talked about it. It wasn't fresh in my mind. But 17 sneaky home runs last year and 405 plate appearances. 209 ISO, 102 WRC plus. This year, only 243 plate appearances. Still hit 10 home runs, 212 ISO, only 88 WRC plus. Not exactly the picture of consistency, but sneaky power that people don't really roster for 3,100, 2,800. Considering he hit a pretty high-profile home run yesterday, maybe he gets a little bit more attention if he's in the lineup, especially if he moves up the lineup. But a playable part for sure if you're going to stacks of Brewers. The super frisky Diamondbacks on the other side, especially if you get a day where Freddie's giving up a little bit of pop, they would be interesting to me. I like this team because they sequence well. They don't strike out a ton. They've got a fair amount of power. They've got a good amount of speed. Corbin Carroll with a big knock yesterday. 25 homers, 54 steals on the season. We talked about him taking a little bit of a dip in terms of his power output and everything, so the homer yesterday was nice to see. Overall, just a great season, though. 221 ISO, 133 WRC plus, 19% strikeout rate. Ketel Marte, 16.8% strikeout rate, 25 homers, 8 steals, 209 ISO, 127 WRC plus. Mama says, I think it was Weimer. I always roster one lineup with the Taylor brothers in it. I don't think it was Weimer. It was somebody else that was down there. I'm trying to remember who the hell it was, because I actually like Weimer, and I would have talked about him. I forget who it was though. It's gonna bug me now. It wasn't this. It wasn't Monasterio Perkins. It so does not matter. I'll think of it later on, or what I'll probably end up doing is going up and pulling up yesterday's show so I can see who was in that spot. But I don't think it was Weimer, because I do like Weimer. Jake says, I don't know. I think Peralta carves up the Snakes and is the SP1 on the board. That is well within the realm of possibility, Jake. That is he is a dynamite pitcher. Again, the top strikeout rate on the board in terms of this year. He's been at higher strikeout rates for seasons. 2 years ago, 33%, like we saw. I just don't love targeting this Diamondbacks team with pitching. But yeah, that is firmly on the board. I'm going to have some of all of these pitchers. Matthew says, hopefully everyone just entered their over 4.5 gallon strikeouts after that analysis. Line should be at 6. Yeah, 4.5 sounds pretty low to me. And this, well, let's see, who would be, I mean, they get help from Frelick in only 223. Santana's good at avoiding the strikeout. Kana is legit. What were Frelick's strikeout numbers in the minors like? I want to know how legit that number is for Sal Frelick. Yeah, it's legit. 9.8%. That's only in. Oh, that's in 183. He's 9.8% strikeout rate in 183 plate appearances at AAA this year. In 217 AAA last year, 7.4%. 13% in 253 at AA last year. 15.2 at A-ball. So he's gotten better at not striking out on his way up through the minors. Jumped to the 16.6 in the show, but seems realistic for Sal Frelick. So these three guys, kind of difficult to strike out, but everybody else 20 plus. And if they change up the lineup, off the top of my head, there's nobody else that comes in that's aggressively good at not striking out. So yeah, I like that over 4.5 for gallon. That makes a lot of sense to me, especially because he's a guy who just is gonna work deep into the game. If I had to pick, it's Nola and Gallon that are the two most likely to work into the 7th, let's say, given their typical depth of start. So yeah, I like that number quite a bit. Diamondbacks lineup, if we are targeting Freddie. We were talking about it. We talked through Carroll and Marte. Marte, again, just one of your top options at second. But as we saw yesterday, as we discovered, I was starting to say that second was kind of thin, and then I took a peek around the teams, and second's actually kind of deep with these teams involved, especially with 5 eligible second basemen or whatever it is from that Twins lineup. By the way, that wasn't the confirmed Twins lineup. Oh, it was. All right, it was. I was going to say if we had the Kyle Farmers or whatever of the world, they'd be interesting options there too, but that was the confirmed Twins lineup. Garrett Mitchell, thank you, Mamba. That was the guy. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was Garrett Mitchell that was in the Tyrone Taylor spot yesterday. If you did get him, 35.6% strikeouts in 73 plate appearances. Did hit 3 home runs, stole a base. Hit 2 home runs, stole 8 bases in 68 last year. Not an uninteresting player overall, but definitely supports your strikeout narrative. And I kind of like Tyrone a little bit better. Tommy Pham, definitely an interesting player. 48.8% hard hits, 10.7% barrel, 16 home runs, 22 steals. Multi-tool guy. Great spot in the lineup, hitting third. Very, very good price at 4,200, 2,900. Just a dynamite option. Christian Walker, 48-36, 33 home runs and 11 stolen bases on the season at 239 ISO, 120 WRC plus. Mashes, 19.2% strikeouts. Big double in yesterday's game, if I'm remembering correctly. Gabriel Moreno hit a big home run yesterday. 7 home runs on the season, 6 stolen bases at 380 plate appearances. Only a 123 ISO, but a 103 WRC plus was above average for run creation. And just a good hitting catcher. 284, 339, 408. Good hitting catcher. Oh, is Mitchell not on the, didn't make the wild card roster? Don't play him then. Brewers. Let's see who's in there. So they have, out of the guys that are not in that projected lineup, Caratini would be a downgraded catcher, but he does have a little bit of power. I'm pretty sure he strikes out more than Contreras. Owen Miller, Andrew Monasterio, non-threatening bats that probably won't be in the lineup. Blake Perkins, Joey Weimer, and Jesse Winker made the playoff roster. I didn't realize that. Winker would be a weird one to get in there. Didn't do like anything this year. Didn't do like anything last year. But once upon a time. And once upon a time was 2 years ago with the Cincinnati Reds. This year, only 199, 320, 247 in 197 plate appearances. 1 home run, 65 WRC plus. Struck out 25.9% of the time. Last year was down as well. 14 home runs in 547 plate appearances with Seattle. But the year before, 305, 394, 556 created runs, 48% better than average over 485 plate appearances, and hit 24 home runs while with Cincinnati. Not an uninteresting left-handed bat if he makes it into the lineup for 2,700, 2,200. That's somewhat compelling. And then Perkins is probably not going to get in there. He's never was kind of a guy who was supposed to be, he was a second-round pick, I want to say, former Yankees prospect. Never really landed at this level. Has some tools, but doesn't really produce much. Kind of just a dart throw option if he ends up in the lineup. And then Weimer, as I said, I do actually think is a talented guy. He had 13 home runs and 11 stolen bases in 410 plate appearances, a 75 WRC plus, and just a good athlete. Kid with a lot of tools. So I wouldn't mind Weimer. Winker would be actually interesting. What I wouldn't want to do is sacrifice Tyrone for either one of those guys. But say they put Winker in over like Frelick, that could be interesting. I don't think they would, but could be interesting. Zach Gallen. Where did the bats rank? Arizona does land second on the board by fantasy points, but 8th by home run projections, which is annoying. I'm going to go Gallen, Freddie, Diamondbacks, Brewers. This is a pitching day. Mom is going back to Taylor. If he's in, Ty Taylor. Mike Taylor doesn't hit 3 home runs in a row. Daniel Pub says I'm behind again. Yesterday was decent targeting Philly and Arizona for me. All right. Sounds good. Always good to hear. Good afternoon, pal. Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Hit the like button, by the way, if you haven't already, everybody out there. Appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. Coming up on 2 o'clock. It is a 3:08 start, so we're going to cruise through this last one, and then we're going to get to some lineup building, but we've got plenty of time. Appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Hit the subscribe so that you know when shows go live. Going to knock out something for football at some point tomorrow. We'll be doing the single game football show, of course, at I don't know, 6:30 somewhere tomorrow. We'll figure out scheduling for everything. Try and get a little content up for everything. Football projections will be up at some point in the next 24 hours or so. Going to try and have them up for tomorrow morning. That said, probably having my usual Wednesday night hangout, have some beers routine tonight. So we'll see what happens. Gonna try. I do have a lot of time through the afternoon though, so I'm probably gonna try and get those done during the afternoon while I watch baseball. So keep an eye out for that stuff. And yeah, that's all the business there is to take care of. Today's show is brought to you by coffee. Delicious coffee keeps us conscious. The Miami Marlins. Would you believe if I told you that the Miami Marlins are the top overall stack on the board by fantasy point projections today in a matchup against Aaron Nola, who is the third-ranked overall pitcher? That's a confusing set of numbers, but that's how things came out. I don't exactly know why. I think it's partly because everybody else projects lower, where Miami is just kind of projecting out like themselves. But they were getting a little bit of pop today, and I can't fully explain it. I like the team. They are the only team with two guys over the magic number in the home run model, I believe. That's Jake Berger and Jorge Soler, the two obvious names. But it's not really comfy. I do think they can get to Nola. He's been more gettable this season. 4.04% home run rate, 8.3% barrels, 38.5% hard hits, 89.3 miles an hour of exit velo, 4.46 ERA, a 3.63 xFIP, a very non-Aaron Nola kind of a season. Gave us 193 and 2/3 in 32 starts, typically pitched through any trouble, would still work 6 or 7 innings even when he gave up a few runs. 25.5% strikeouts over the course of the season, 5.7% walks. Those are still fairly good. Strikeouts are down by like 4 points, or 3.5. The walks went up by about 2 points, but still effective. I mean, it's not like he became a 19% strikeout pitcher who walked 10%. Just wasn't quite as sharp as he was in years past. Went from being an absolute ace to just a good, effective number 2. That's why I was struggling yesterday to say whether he or Wheeler was the number 1 or the number 2. Wheeler went out and put a pretty solid stamp on the number 1 job. We'll see what Nola can do today. There's plenty of potential. I fully believe in the Nola projection. At the same time, I kind of believe in the projections on the Marlins side. So this is a firm both sides-er for me. All these games are both sidesers. I think everybody knows that out there. But yeah, really curious. In a vacuum, I love the idea of getting Aaron Nola this cheap. It's also going to make him very, very popular. He's getting a lot of buzz in the places that I looked at before when we were looking for the pitch counts and stuff. Looked like he was getting tagged by basically everybody as a, this is a key play today, too cheap, he's a value play, he's a top-end play, et cetera, et cetera. They've got him projected higher than I do. So I think he gets popular. I think he gets a ton of buzz. On DK for 8,000, he's going to be popular, no doubt about it. 8,700 on FanDuel. So I think there's good reason to target him with some Marlins bats. I'm probably going to end up, if he stays as popular as it looked like he was going to be, probably going to end up under the field on Nola while still rostering him, and probably over or around the field on the Marlins with a pretty good target at Aaron Nola. I think it's a good way to approach the slate. On the other side, Braxton Garrett, one of the lower projected pitchers overall, kind of on innings, but also the Phillies are just, really good. 159 and 2/3 innings in 30 starts. It's concerning depth. That's the one thing. Doesn't pitch very deep into ball games. I like the pitcher a lot. I really like his stuff. I like the steps that he took forward this year. If we're looking at September, he did pitch 6 innings twice in September in 4 September starts. He pitched 6 innings 4 times in August in 6. Is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, started 6 times in August. 4 of those 6 times he went into the 6th inning. The other 2 times he went 5. Part of it is some very short starts in the 3s and the 4s. They were yanking him early when he was giving up runs. He didn't pitch through trouble a lot of times. Man, he's got like one blip game in here. He gave up 6 to Colorado, of all teams. Not even in Colorado, in Miami, on July 21st. He lasted just 3 innings. Got yanked after giving up 6 as a lefty to that awful Colorado team. So most of Colorado's runs against lefties came in that game. 5 strikeouts that game. That game, and then one terrible game, his worst of the year, came against Atlanta all the way back on May 3rd. Went 4 1/3, gave up 11 earned runs, 14 hits, 4 home runs. If you took that game out of his numbers overall for the season, Just take that one game away. This would look even better. I mean, this would be pretty dynamite. 3.66 ERA overall, 3.42 xFIP, only walked 4.4%, struck out 23.7, 11.2% swinging, 30.1% CSW. Was good overall at limiting power, outside of that 4 home runs to the Braves, but everybody gave up 4 home runs to the Braves this year. 3.03% home run rate, 7.8% barrels, 45-1 hard hits, but only a 7.4 degree angle, so we don't really care. 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo. We could be better at limiting hard hits and exit velo, but as long as he's keeping that angle down, it's pretty effective. Cuts everybody down except for Kyle Schwarber, who still creeps over the magic number, but it's taken 4 or 5 points off of Schwarber's number because he's typically in the 13 to 15 range. But Turner, everybody gets cut from further than half of the magic number. Definitely upside available for the Phillies. Get into the bullpen early. Got all kinds of potential for some scoring. Kyle Schwarber was the home run pick of the day because, hey, why not? 10.2 in the model, one of the highest marks on the board. I could have gone to one of the Marlins, but I wasn't really feeling that against Nola. And I like the idea of going to the lefty-lefty for Schwarber, as we looked at yesterday. 15 of his 47 home runs came against same-handed pitching, and he had a 250-something ISO against lefties versus 277 overall. So we don't worry at all about the lefty-lefty for Schwarber here. Slightly more gettable lefty than what he was facing yesterday with Jesus Luzardo and just his nasty stuff. Garrett's got very good stuff, but he's not quite as nasty as Luzardo is. Trey Turner, dynamite end to his season, finished with 26 home runs, 30 stolen bases, a 108 WRC plus, 6,000 on DK, 37 on FanDuel. The FanDuel price isn't bad. 6,000 on DK, it's not incorrect, but it's high. 4,400 for Alec Boehm, 3,000 on FanDuel. Great buy there. 20 home runs on the season, 274, 327, 437, 105 WRC plus. Bryce Harper's their star, 21 homers, 11 steals, 142 WRC plus. JT Realmuto, excellent catcher option, 20 homers, 16 steals. Good spot in the lineup for him. Hitting ahead of these guys who can knock him in, hitting behind these guys who he can drive in. Really like Realmuto in the heart of that lineup. 200 ISO created runs, 2% better than average. 42.7% hard hits with 11.2% barrels. Excellent year for him. Mamba says Nola, 8 innings, 6 hits, 1 earned, 10 Ks. I could absolutely see that. Mama's offering up cheesesteaks in celebration if everybody wins today. Nice see it. Wheeler's a clear number 1. As I stated yesterday, Miami should not be able to score runs against the Phillies. Easy money. Yeah, I could absolutely see Nola going out and stacking up a very good start behind Wheeler's good start. 2 quick wins, punch out, move on to the next series. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. One of my favorite pitchers in baseball over the last few seasons was a key part of my dynasty teams over the past few years. So I am a big Aaron Nola booster. And he projects out well. What is he, 3rd on the board? 4th? But, same. Not a lot of daylight between these projections. I could absolutely see the Nola start here. But it's a both sides are for me. Luis Arraez at the top of the lineup on the other side, 45-31. 10 home runs on the season. Odd little output of power given his very limited contact, but a spectacular hitter. 354, 393, 469, 132 WRC plus. He hits ahead of Jorge Soler. Love that power combo. I like the power that these guys threw the heart of the lineup show. We'll get into that, but I skipped the bottom of the Phillies lineup. Nick Castellanos down here behind Realmuto, 47-35. Great price for him. 29 home runs, 11 steals. Monster season. Carried the team early in the season, too. He was the only one on the Phillies that was going right for a while. It was him, Stott, Boehm, Brendan Marsh carried this team early, and then everybody kind of got in gear and got their seasons going. Harper came back. Trey Turner late in the season got himself going. But Nicky Castellanos did a lot for this team this year. 272, 311, 476. Created runs 9% better than average on the whole. Bryson Stott, 15 homers, 31 steals, a 101 WRC plus. Very strong player, 15.6% strikeouts. Puts the ball in play like crazy. Christian Pache, 2,100 on both sites. Mostly here for defense. 2 homers, 2 steals so far, 99 WRC plus. Can put bat on ball in the right spot, though. 44.8% hard hit across his 95 plate appearances. Not insignificant. Joan Rojas, 0.9% barrels, 28.3% hard hits. Did manage 2 home runs, 14 steals, a 342 on base. A semi-effective wraparound option. Back to the top of the lineup for sure. Daniel Pope went to school with Brandon Marsh. Good dude. He had a dynamite season. If you see him, tell him we were talking up his season all year long. Thought he had a great year. Created runs 25% better than average, mostly from the bottom of the lineup all season. 277, 372, 458. Had a 181 ISO. 12 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 48.7% hard hits. Technically led the team. More hard hits than Kyle Schwarber. More than Bryce Harper on a ratio basis. Just a monster guy. Could find his way into the lineup. Probably not against the lefty. But you never know. More likely to pinch hit. Is he hurt? If he's hurt, then he's not going to get in. Little shit like that I missed. Sitting out a lot of these slates down the stretch. No, he's on the line. Or he's on the roster. I would expect Pache again with a lefty on the hill again. But you never know. So going through that Marlins lineup real quick. I did Arias Soler, 48% hard hits, 15% barrels, 36 home runs. He's a monster power hitter. Hit 27 2 years ago and 602. Just 13 last year because he only made 306 plate appearances. But a dynamite power bat. Josh Bell really came to life after coming to Miami. 22 home runs in 617 plate appearances overall. I think they were saying on the broadcast yesterday it was 11 of them came after coming to Miami. So he had 11 in like 400 and change plate appearances with Cleveland, and then like 200 plate appearances in another 11 with Miami. 172 ISO overall, 105 WRC plus, 4,000, 2,700. Great pricing on the Marlins here. Jazz Chisholm, 5,000, 3,400. 19 homers, 22 steals, and only 384 plate appearances at 210 ISO, a 104 WRC plus. Star caliber talent. Just needs to be on the field more consistently. Jake Berger, I was saying it in the chat yesterday. If you've watched this team, if you've seen Jake Berger, in 999 out of every 1,000 universes, Jake Berger is absolutely like a highway patrolman. He's just like with his body type, with the mustache that he's got, like he looks like Farva from Super Troopers. But man, good power hitter. In this universe, he happens to be a dynamite right-handed power bat. 999 other universes, he's a cop. 16.7% barrel, 49.3% hard hits, 34 home runs on the season, 268 ISO, 120 WRC plus. Another player that started the year with a different team. He was on Chicago, came over to Miami and kept on mashing home runs. Great option for 4,300, 3,100. Facing Aaron Nola, no easy task. 27.6% strikeout rate. Nola's got some upside for strikeouts for sure. Several of their best players, kind of the opposite of the Blue Jays, are their highest strikeout guys. With Jazz at 30.7, Berger at 27.6, Soler at 24.3. You've got the outlier of Arias, 5.5% strikeouts, 5.7% walks. Just everything is in play. But even down the lineup, Jesus Sanchez, 26.6. There's upside for strikeouts for sure for Nola. So that call that Mamba made of a 10 strikeout game for Nola is definitely in play. De La Cruz had a good season. 259, 305, 412, 92 WRC plus, 19 home runs. Sanchez, in only 402 plate appearances, hit 14 homers. I think like 10 of them came before the injury. 197 ISO, 109 WRC plus. A good little season. Could have been, if he hadn't gotten hurt, I think we would have seen a pretty strong breakout season from him. 12.2% barrels, 46.3% hard hits overall. 3,100, 2,600 for the money. That's a great option. John Birdie, 32-28. We were talking about his disappearing stolen bases yesterday. Only came up with 16 this year. Nick Fortes in this projected lineup. We might see Jacob Stallings. Fortes is really there to be the caddy for Luzardo. So we might end up with Jacob Stallings in that spot. He is their other catcher, right? Stallings this year was 191, 278, 286. 3 home runs. Not a great option. Yeah, it might go either way at catcher. I think the Marlins catcher position is one of the lowest overall priority spots on the entire slate, though. So we're not really going to sweat it at the end of the show. What else do we have to talk about? I think that's basically it, guys. Only 4 games. Coming up on an hour and a half. Daniel Pope says 5-2 Philly, Nolas 8 strikeouts, and he's calling a Bryce Harper home run. I went with the Kyle Schwarber home run, but we're on the same page. I could easily give it to Bryce. Obviously, the home run model favors Kyle Schwarber quite a bit there. But you could definitely give it to Bryce. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Nathan Footy, Randy A. or Josh Lowe, last man in. In a vacuum, I'd probably go with Otto Serena. It's not all that far off, though. You could, well, what do you think about that? Are you on DK or FanDuel? Because there's a pretty big price discrepancy on DK. So if it's on DK, it would have to be a matter of what are you doing with that additional $900? Where they're only separated by 100 on FanDuel, it's a lot closer. I like the spot in the lineup better for Rosarena. I like the multi-faceted skill set that he gives you, although Lowe does that as well. That's another one. It's kind of like Mamba's Julian or Polanco thing. Either way, I don't think you're making a mistake. On DK, you can definitely say that Josh Lowe would give you more value because of that $900 price discrepancy. So that would probably have been my answer over there. On FanDuel, I could go either way. I really don't care. Home run model slightly favors Rosarena. Probably just on the back of the spot in the lineup. If we switched them, it would probably come out fairly even. But you get the lefty bat with Josh Lowe, which I kind of like throwing it Evaldi there. I would probably slightly lean Josh Lowe and hope that like all 3 of these guys get on ahead of him. But it's very, very close. Not making a mistake either way. Oh, there you go. Mama says, thanks for reminding me about the Pache pinch. I can take him out of my lineup for Taylor now. Lineup completed. Boom. Done and done. Nathan's on FanDuel. Yeah, so it's a hell of a lot closer on the FanDuel slate, Nathan. I'll take that. Oh, there's the, oh no. We're all turning into zombies. Everybody run! You guys saw that, right? The conspiracy theories that were going around yesterday about that alert that just came out. It was gonna all the Q folks out there in the world. I'm not even gonna say not to offend any QAnon people. If you're a QAnon person and you're in this crowd, feel free to leave. That's how it is. Outside of that, did you see, though? That's what I was getting at. That was their thing yesterday. This alert that just went off was supposed to activate the antibodies that were shot into everybody's bodies via the vaccines, and we were all going to turn into zombies because of some bat virus that was going to be activated in our systems. Anyway. So, this is a fun one. Demon Nat says the world's ending. Let me finish my lineups first. Walking Dead confirmed. Yeah, look, both sides of the political aisle I can embrace everybody and you're all welcome here, but if you were a QAnon nut, yeah, I got nothing for you. I don't know. Where's Daryl Dixon when we need him? Yeah, seriously. So let's look at the home run board. Mamba asked about that one. Schwarb's up near the top, not at the top, though. I think it's Soler, Berger, Schwarb's. Seager, Soler, Schwarb's, Berger. Okay. So only 5 guys above the magic number. 2 of them from the Rangers, 2 of them from the Marlins, and Kyle Schwarber. Marlins flashing a little bit of pop. Jazz is right here, too. But the Twins were the lead. Remember I said earlier the Twins the leading team for average for power up and down the lineup? After we get outside that top group, look how many Twins we're dealing with. So from 5, call it 5.5 up, there's a lot of Twins there. fair amount of Rangers, some Rays. It's a good spread, but the Twins have the highest average totals. Just peaks higher with the Rangers, the Marlins, and the Phillies. Chad, I like Kepler better between those two. Wallner's a good option, though. I don't know what the price savings is. Wallner's not a bad choice, but Kepler's one of my guys. I like that spot better. You're also getting a better spot in the lineup. It's a pretty big price discrepancy on both sides, so if you can do something very interesting with that savings by going to Wallner, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But in a total vacuum where you're not spending that money on something else, then I prefer Kepler. V says, shake my head, zombie apocalypse. So that was the home run board. Daniel Pub's hand building today, thinking of a 4-3 with Minnesota and Philly. Don't mind that option at all, my friend. Like that quite a bit. Get yourself a good one-off and a good pitcher, and you're on your way. So, Eovaldi, the big controversy at the top of the board. I'm going to go to it. I'm going to hope that the public doesn't go to it as much based on the feedback that I was getting from the chat. I think that probably is going to be the case. So it'll be me and Nathan Eovaldi going down in flames together. And then it's Jose Barrios. Good option going up against the Twins. Probably, in terms of the opponent, the highest strikeout upside on the board. But a lot of these guys are very adept at finding strikeouts on their own, so they don't necessarily need that support to have the monster game. Guys like Nola with his strikeout potential. Zach Gallen certainly against that Brewers lineup, and we like the Zach Gallen over 4.5 strikeouts as we were talking about. Eflin against Texas, not the greatest spot in the world, but he's pitched very, very well all season. Fully believe in that option. Nola is just way too cheap. He's gonna be the most popular pitcher on both sides. He's got to be. Being Aaron Nola going up against the Marlins, who people still perceive as not a good team, with middle pricing on both sides, Nola's going to be the most popular pitcher on both sides. Happy to go to him. I'll have tons, but I'll probably be below the field, and I'll probably be a little bit above the field on the Marlins, given how they rank out in the model. Sonny Gray, totally effective, very strong season. Lower end in terms of strikeouts, Freddie Peralta, very high end. The only 30+% strikeout pitcher on the board for the season, but going up against the best team at avoiding strikeouts and a fairly frisky, dangerous Arizona team in a year in which Freddie's given up a little bit more power. There's a couple factors playing against him, including on FanDuel, the price, but I expect that price will keep him a little bit lower owned on the FanDuel slate. I'll have plenty of Freddie, just not my favorite overall option. And then Braxton Garrett for $8,000 and $6,700 on DK. You can hammer that spot on DK in terms of the SP2 value. He cuts out power a little bit. Are those numbers your DK projections? I don't know which numbers you're referring to. Assuming you're talking about these are FanDuel projections. That's FanDuel, mama. Yeah, all the projections that you guys see all year have been FanDuel, the pitching projections that I show. But baseball works directionally. So just, these guys would rank in the same order if I did it for DK. Yeah, a lot of them would be high numbers for DK pitching. So everybody's in play on the mound. All 8 pitchers. I think you can totally justify having decent shares of any one of them. And I think it's a good strategy to have at least a little bit of all of them if you're building a full slate of lineups. If you're only building 20, I think you can definitely stake out some positions on this slate. And it would probably, for me, not be around like Aaron Nola as the most popular option. I would probably try and pick a rotation of 3 to 4 pitchers to use across my 20 lineups and just make a couple stands. If I'm only building one lineup, you're obviously making stands with one lineup, with 3 lineups. 20 is where you can get into like, I can play a little bit of everything, or I could make a couple specific stands. And I think on a slate like this, I do think it's a little bit more valuable to, in a 20 max, just say, all right, look, I am making a stand around, Terry's model like this, my model likes this. I think this guy's a great pitcher. I'm going to make a stand on X, and we're going to go with it. I think that's more the approach that I would take in 20s. With that, gang, I think that's it. We're coming up on 2:30, so we definitely got to get lineup building engaged. So with that, I'm going to say farewell. I'm going to say I'll see you tomorrow. Keep an eye out on the website. Projections going up for football. We'll have a show for sure for the showdown slate for football tomorrow. I'm going to attempt to get a football main slate show done. Assuming that there is a baseball slate, we'll have something for the baseball slate. Stay tuned. That's why you got to hit the subscribe button. And that's why you got to be in the Discord hanging out with us and chatting. A lot of conversation going on in the Discord. It's not always just screenshots. A lot of good stuff. And the more that people come in and the more that people participate and chat with each other, the more chat there is. See how that works? With that, guys, good luck out there. Somebody go win something. I'll see you tomorrow.